Okay, so before we proceed to the next lesson of ours, let's have first a short recap of what we had tackled last meeting. Okay, can somebody or can someone tell me what was the lesson that we had tackled last meeting? It's all about what? Again, what lesson we had tackled last meeting? Yes, Rika.
Literary and non-literary text po.
Okay, literary and non-literary text. Okay, can someone give me an example of what a literary text? No, an example of literary text rather. Give me one example of a literary text. Okay, there is a books, poems, depende sa book ha. Okay, poems, drama, okay, a diary. Okay, those are examples of a literary text. How about on the other hand, an example of a non-literary text? What are the examples of it? You can type it in the chat box if you want. The manual, okay, very well. How about the others, aside from the manual? Okay, the news, no, the newspapers, okay, those are examples of a non-literary text. The cookbooks, no, the brochures, okay, very well. No, magazines, no, everything that not the purpose is to inform, okay, and not to tell a story narratively. Okay, so because that is a literary one. Okay, so that is literary and non-literary text. So moving forward, today we will be having a reading now in the biographical context. Okay, so we will be talking about now context. Okay, so before we define what context is and what biographical context is, okay, so may I show you first this video, okay, as a sneak peek or introduction of what a biographical context is. Okay, so kindly watch for a while.
Hi, welcome to Quipper Video. Was there a time when strong emotions compelled you to write? What piece were you able to produce? One way by which you can productively express strong emotions is by writing a literary piece. Given this, it is of little wonder why a lot of texts are born out of a writer's personal experiences. If such is the case, can we then use our knowledge of the author's life to understand a text? Some scholars say that literature is a mirror of life and society. It allows us to learn more about relationships, politics, economy, and other day-to-day experiences. Do you remember having to read about an author's life before reading his or her work? If you do, then you have read a text with an idea of its biographical context. By examining the author's life, we can better understand his or her work. Through this approach, an author's experiences and beliefs are assumed to be reflected in his or her work. Another assumption of this approach is that the context of the literary piece can be better understood by learning some information about the author. Hence, autobiographies and biographies become useful resources in understanding a text. For example, José Rizal's novels Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo show the Spaniards' maltreatment of the natives. The colonizers excluded the natives from governing their towns and even deprived them of quality education and a decent standard of living. These novels are considered to have a realistic portrayal of how rich and poor Filipinos are regarded by those who are in power, because José Rizal's own experiences and observations shaped the events in the books. Another example is Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. In the novel, the four March sisters grew up with their mother providing most of their needs. This setup is similar to how Alcott and her sisters were raised. Since their father could not provide well for the family, their mother did a lot of work. In the novel, Jo March worked as a writer to address her family's needs. Similarly, Louisa May Alcott wrote the said novel to improve her family's financial situation. Can you remember reading a fictional story that reflects so much information about the author? When reading in the biographical context, you need to do thorough research on the author's life, belief, and experiences, and then check how these are reflected in his or her work. You may also want to go the other way around. You can read several works by the same author and see if there are patterns that resemble the author's life experiences. Let's take, for example, the English writer Jane Austen. Her works, such as Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma, are widely read in many countries. One of her most famous novels, Pride and Prejudice, is a classic read in many English classes. Many readers and literary experts believe that the novel vividly depicts the early 19th century English society, especially that of the middle class, the class in which Austen belonged. To sum up, when we read a text using the biographical context, we examine how the author's life and his or her experiences shape a text's meaning. This approach assumes that a part of the author's life is reflected in his or her work. By knowing more about the author, we get to experience a deeper appreciation of his or her literary works. In the next video, we will discuss the guidelines on reading a work in consideration of its biographical context.
Okay, so that is the introduction for a biographical context. So as you hear on the presentation, so when we say biographical context, it has something to do with the author's life. Okay, so firstly, okay, so in reading a particular text, okay, in a biographical context, we first must know what was the authorial background, okay, of the author of that particular text. Why? Because in a biographical context, okay, it revolves around the author's life, himself or herself. Okay, so other texts ng authors, all of most of her text or most of his or her text, okay, has something to do with his or her life. Okay, so pag biographical context, we must first read the authorial background, okay, or the background of the author. Okay, so para mas malaman natin agad, okay, kung ano yung life experiences niya na he or she put in his or her text. Okay, so ganun yung biographical context from the words of the biography. Okay, someone's story, someone's life story. Okay, so let us first define what context is. So when we say context, it is the background, environment, setting, framework, or surroundings of events of occurrence. It is also the circumstances forming a background of an event, idea, or statement in such a way as to enable readers to understand the narrative or a literary piece. Sinabing context, it is anything beyond the specific words, okay, of a literary work that may be relevant, okay, to understanding the meaning. So context can be economics, it can be social, it can be cultural, it can be literary, it can be biographical, etc. Okay, so kaya meron tayong biographical context, di ba? Meron pa yung madami pa yan, economic, social, context, so cultural, historical, so on and so forth. Okay, so that is what we call context. Okay, the setting, the framework, the background. Okay, ito ang tinatawag nating context. Now, pag pinagsama natin, biographical context, meaning it is a particular literary work within the context of the author's life. Okay, so meaning the life of the author, okay, is somehow have a resemblance, okay, in his or her literary piece. Kaya importante na basahin muna kung ano yung buhay or the life story of a particular author, okay, before reading his or her literary work. Okay, biographically kapag biographical context ang pinag-uusapan. Okay, if that particular text is will fall under biographical context, then first, kailangan nyo munang basahin ang author's life. Kaya yung some of the significant events happen to the author, okay, in order for you to easily relate to his or her work. Next, when we say biographical context, context connects a particular works to the author's life. Kaya yung sabi kanina, analyzes a text using details from the author's life. Yun pa din. The text is always central. The author is just reporting what he or she has witnessed. Okay? So pero not to the extent, no, hindi lahat true to life nang naandun sa isang literary text. Okay, syempre of course, no, naglalagay niya rin siya yung mga experiences niya onto that literary piece. But there will be additional, of course. Okay, not the entirety of it. Okay, so details about the author are meant to enhance, not necessarily create our understanding of the text. So in analyzing a text, no, based on its biographical context, we should do three things. Okay, first, no, consider not only how the factors have caused an impact to the author, but also how these factors, no, were reflected in and have helped shape his or her works. Second, take into consideration, no, the literary background of the author. Third, research about who, no, and which author, okay, reads, as this may influence him or her and his or her works. Okay, so in analyzing those, in analyzing text, no, biographically, we should we should do those three. Okay, so later on, makikita nyo yun dyan. So useful sources when it comes to biographical context, biographies of the author. Okay, so pwede nyo munang basahin yan, no, the authorial background, no, in the biography of an author before reading, no, a particular text written by that particular author. Autobiographies or memoirs, no, by the author, critical works that give close attention to the author's life. Eh, pwede rin kayo magbasa ng other literary piece na ginawa niya, okay, which is very much relevant, no, to his or her life story. Okay, so before reading another story. Okay, in order for you to connect, okay, kung ano ba yung mga nangyari sa buhay niya into his or literary piece. Yeah, no? So just like what I mentioned earlier, in analyzing a text based on its biographical context, you should do these three. Okay, so one best example is Anne Frank. Okay, so if you are familiar with Anne Frank, no, the Diary of a Young Girl. Okay, so in the early Nazi, no, regime, no, ni Adolf Hitler, si Anne's father Otto Frank, which is a German businessman, took his wife and two daughters to live in Amsterdam. Okay, so in 1941, after German forces occupied the Netherlands, Anne was compelled to transfer from a public school to a Jewish one. Okay, so yung pamilya nila Anne Frank, okay, in an Amsterdam, okay, so they were put in a hiding place, okay, because of the Holocaust. Okay, nagkaroon kasi ng Holocaust that time, no, in the Germany. Okay, this is a genocide of European Jews during the World War II. Okay, so in between 1941 and 1945, no, the Nazi Germany, okay, in its collaboration systematically, no, murdered, okay, some 6 million Jews across German-occupied Europe. Okay, so again, 6 million Jews was executed or was murdered, no, during the Holocaust. Kaya parang may gera. Kaya yung iba is nagtatago, no, doon sa kanilang secret hiding place. Okay? And also, so si Anne Frank, okay, that time, okay, so binigyan siya ng diary. Okay, so nung nabigyan siya ng diary, doon niya ngayon sinulat yung mga bagay na gusto niyang isulat kasi hindi naman siya nakakalabas. Okay, so nandun lang sila sa may hiding place nila. So friends who searched, no, the hiding place after the family's capture, no, later gave her father, Otto Frank, no, the papers left behind by the Gestapo. Now, among them, he found Anne's diary, okay, which was published as Anne Frank, okay, the Diary of a Young Girl. Okay, so this is a series, okay, of a diary, so series of of writings, no, ni Anne Frank. Okay, so sabi doon, okay, nakasulat, no, in an open and close quotation marks, okay, I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are really good at heart. Okay, so yun yung nakasulat doon sa kanyang diary, probably on the front page of it. Okay, so yung kanyang mga sinulat into her diary, okay, has something to do with what he or she has experienced, no, or had experienced during that time. Okay, kaya kung babasahin natin yung diary ng Diary of a Young Girl ni Anne Frank, first, we must read first kung ano ba yung nangyari sa buhay niya. Okay? Kaya kung bakit ganun na lang, okay, yung nilalaman ng kanyang literary piece. Okay, so mas marami pang iba, hindi lang kay Anne Frank, kagaya nga ng sabi dun sa video kanina, di ba? So kay Jane Austen, dun sa kanyang mga novels such as the Pride and Prejudice, okay, the Sense and Sensibility, okay, so the Emma, okay, so those authors, okay, there are challenges to happen to their life, and it becomes a motivation for them not to write a particular literary piece, okay, relevant not to what they have experienced. That's why it was under it is falling under a biographical context. No, that's why it's very much important for us to first read the authorial background, okay, before reading a literary text, no, in a biographical context. Another one is the this one, no. This is the essay, no, Tips from a Loser by Arvin I. Busi. Okay, so ito yung authorial background dyan, naka-ready na rin. Okay? So I'm a 90s kid, so lakihan lang natin ako. Maliit pala talaga siya. Okay, so as you can see, no, by Arvin Busing, this is a tips from a loser. Okay, authorial background here. Okay, and then meron tayo ditong the essay niya. Okay, so dear little sister, so you've just turned 14. Okay, the author is addressing, no, to his little sister. So you've just turned 14. Now you enjoy a lot more freedom than you did 3 years ago. You choose the clothes you wear, you choose the time you want to go to bed and the time you want to wake up. You can even stay up late pretending to be studying while actually dreaming about the cute guy you saw in school. Now I can't call you names like Putike or Big Eyes anymore. No longer can I pull your hair or hit you on the head or do violent things whenever I get mad at you. You're turning into a woman, okay, and you have a life ahead of you. These years, not from now, you'll be going to college, and I hope that you won't make the same mistakes that I did. Me, everybody thinks I'm a failure. Nanay, tatay, my teachers, my wife, even you, I guess. Everybody thinks I'm a failure because even a miracle won't help me graduate on time. I'll be an undergraduate forever. I know I'm smart. How could I have passed the UP College admission test otherwise? I finished elementary as valedictorian. I finished high school as a valedictorian. I always get the first honors. But UP was different. Everyone there had brains as big as mine, maybe even bigger. If I was Superman in our little barrio, then UP was the planet Krypton. I was not ready to fight intellectual battles with people who had the same capacity as mine. I was used to bullying intellectual weaklings. I finally met my match after years of training over our little barrio. So I got beaten black and blue. It was really a big shock for me. Now, everyone thinks I'm a failure. But someday, when I have recovered from the shock, I'll be back with a vengeance someday. But you, my dear little sister, are definitely not a failure, and you will never be if you follow these simple tips. First, there's a world out there to conquer, and it's a lot bigger than what children's songs say. Don't confine your dreams to our little barrio. Dream bigger dreams, but be practical. You have to learn to strike a balance between being imaginative and being practical, and that is vital for success. Second, other students may seem to write better than you. Some may appear to do better in numbers. Others will look smarter in the way they dress or the manner they speak. The rule is don't let them scare you. They may look like geniuses to you, but they're not. Most of them are casual nerds. Third, I always say that a bus with a beep of a bike is a lot more dangerous than a tricycle with a horn of a ship. Don't let them see you coming. Don't tell your housemates, no, you topped an exam. They will distract you when you review for your next exam. They will suddenly be generous, no, and test you and treat you to a concert or a movie. Fourth, never get near to a person who is in love or even talk to that person on the phone. Never watch a movie of Meg Ryan. Never read love stories. Above all, never get nearer than 10 meters from an attractive member of the opposite sex. Love is intoxicating and fun at first, but after a while you'll see he can be a pain in your nowhere. Fifth, be ready to face people. Wait lang ha. Much better siguro kung kunin ko muna yung file. Dahil medyo maliit dun sa PowerPoint. Yan. Okay, continuation. Ano tayo sa fifth one? Be ready to face no people who are really smarter than you. I guess there are a lot of them out there. Remember that smart is not a synonym for successful. They may be smarter than you, but you can beat them by being resourceful. Try to make friends with the upperclassmen. They have notes and all the exams that you will find useful. Aside from that, they can also help you avoid terrible instructors. Speaking of instructors, my favorite instructor used to tell us to know our readers before we write. When you're in college, your audience will actually be your instructors. The, the trick in writing roughly translates into this. Know your instructors, learn their styles, their grading system, and other important facts like their phone numbers, and you won't have to get a cinco in your entire life. This lesson is the one I learned the hardest. I learned that you shouldn't daydream about what you're going to do when a very boring class finally ends. You can overthink the feeling of topping the exam while you're still reviewing for it. You will anticipate the future too much that you will no longer live in the present. Take each day as it comes. Don't expect too much from the future, or one disappointment will be enough to shatter you. Neither should you dwell too long on the past. I have a lot more to tell you, but this letter is getting too long. I'll just tell them to you personally when I'm drunk and I have the guts to say things I don't usually say. Okay, so this is the essay written by Mr. Arvin Busin. Okay, so addressed to his little sister. Okay, who is just turning 14. Okay, so bakit na kaya sabi no, yung mga ganong klase ng tips okay, for her sister. Okay, as you can see no, the authorial background, no, yung tips from a loser, sabi dyan, I'm a 90s kid and I became a father at a very young age. I got my then girlfriend and now wife of 22 years, not pregnant when I was 16. I became a father at 17 and we got married when I turned 18. Thankfully, my parents still sent me to college. I wrote the piece below when I was 19 years old and my college life was in shambles because I was trying to work and study at the same time. It was published in the Philippine Daily Inquirer and was included in a book compilation of the best submissions. The book is called Young Blood 2.0. Kaya itong tips from a loser na dito sa Young Blood 2.0, which is still in print. It is my first work ever published in a national paper and it's in a bonus that if I got included in the book. Kaya pero kung magbabasa pa tayo tungkol sa authorial background ni Arvin Busing, may sneak peek naman dito. Kaya may sneak peek na dito. Okay? So maaga siya nung nagkaroon ng asawa. Okay, so that's why nakalagay dyan, di ba? Para sa tingin niya, no, he is a failure. Okay, kung hindi yun mga nangyari sa buhay niya. But still, di ba, he has sent pa rin naman to college. Okay, so dati siya yung pinakamagaling okay, sa kanilang baryo. But nung pumasok siya sa UP, okay, nag-iba ang lahat. Okay, there are a lot of students no, na parehas ng capacity ng utak niya or even bigger pa nga daw. Okay? So kaya niya nasabi yung mga tips na yon to her little sister because of what he had experienced okay, truly no, in his college life. Okay, kaya siya nakapagbigay ng mga ganong klaseng tips in his essay for her little sister. Okay, so that is an example okay, of a biographical context. Okay, we're in a particular text or reading a text okay, biographically, okay, we must first read what was the author or what was the background of the author. Okay, in order for us to know, okay, kung bakit naman ngayon nasasabi yung mga bagay na yun. Okay, because of his or her experience. Okay, so that's why the biographical context ang tawag. Is that clear? Kindly hit the thumbs up button. That's how biographical context works. Now sa activity nyo, yung kanina binuksan nyo ko, now yun yung magiging activity ninyo. Okay, so magse-serve na lang siguro to as your assignment kasi hindi nyo naman to matatapos within, well, kung kaya tapusin, then that would be better. Okay, kung hindi, that will serve as your assignment. Okay, so kindly look for the lesson package, 21st Century Lit Lesson, Biographical Context. Okay, just download this document. Okay, so once na i-open nyo yan, makikita nyo dyan yung the whole essay or whole story. No, of Tips from a Loser by Arvin I. Busing. Okay, this is the copy. And at the bottom part of it, there will be questions. Okay, pwedeng magsagot doon sa text box na lang. Pwede rin naman dito sa file and then paki-upload na lang. Okay, so it's up to you. So upon reading and interpreting the story, Tips from a Loser, here are the list of questions that may help you with the enhancement of your analysis. Okay, so you're just going to reflect on the following questions, to answer the following questions. Okay, so we do have 7 questions here. Okay, and then you're just going to reflect on it. Now you're just going to answer, okay, those following questions about the selection that we had read. Okay, is that clear? Kindly hit the thumbs up button kung clear yun. Okay, so again, pwedeng magsagot dito sa file. Okay, so edit nyo na lang yan, lagyan nyo ng sagot. Or you can also direct your answer on the chat, on the text box rather, not doon sa Genyo, basta lagyan nyo lang ng number para guided din ako na kung anong question. Okay, so we have still 6 minutes, okay, or 7 minutes left. So pwede muna kayo mag-umpisa ng inyong activity. Okay, so available na yan sa Genyo ninyo. So kindly start doing your activity. Once the Zoom meeting is ended, no need to rejoin. No? Just continue answering your activity.